Welcome to In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay, where we get candid about what it takes to negotiate effectively. You'll learn from the challenges and successes of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. We help you change the nature of your negotiations and get more from every deal you do.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing episode of In the Ven Zone, where we help you, the small and mid-sized business, elevate, grow, and just hit your greatest strides by improving the quality of your relationships through better negotiation. And you know me, I say this every time. I am so excited about my guest today, but guess what? I'm so excited about my guest today. Chairidee Smith, who is just this dynamo woman. Oh my God, if you ever get a chance to meet her, you need to bask in the glory that is this woman. She is phenomenal. I met her at an event. We were part of a platinum speaker camp with Bill Walsh, and we just hit it off. It's like we were just talking before we got on the call. I started recording that, I said, I felt like I've known Chairidee my entire life, and everything I did in my life up to the moment she and I met was to prepare me for meeting Ms. Mogul, also what she goes by. And Chairidee she's a real estate mogul, and she is passionate about helping women entrepreneurs level up and be successful and become moguls of their own. And I love, she started this whole movement, Mommies creating economies. And I just love that. So Chairidee, I am so glad to have you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm sending you a hug all over again.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. It's an honor. And you're right. There was definitely a connection immediately. And I don't know if I called you Soul Sister first or you called me Soul Sister first, but there was just this connection. And I instantly saw you as a bright light in the room and wanted to get to know you more. And I'm telling you, it's been a pleasure. It's been a delight knowing you and having this kind of relationship and sisterhood with you. You make my heart smile. So I'm glad to be with you this morning.
Well, but likewise. So thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us, how did you come to be where you are at? What are you doing? All that kind of good stuff.
So it kind of started way back when. We won't go back that far, but I've been in real estate. I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years. So creating economies is my mantra, but it's kind of been what I've always done, always been passionate about entrepreneurship, believing that the quote unquote small business owner really is the engine, not only of the economy, but of the community, of the family, because we're kind of in these nuclei relationships, right? And we find ourselves, for example, as a real estate realtor and then became investor, then CEO, I was always in the family unit and helping to negotiate not just the contract, but what were the desires of the home? What do the children need? What does the mom need? What does the husband need? What does this particular unit need in order to create a life here? For me, it wasn't just about buying the home. It was about creating an environment for the best in these people to happen. And most of the real estate professionals were not approaching each and every contract or deal that way. But that was my way because I lead from the heart. And so what I found is that there were more opportunities out there to now take this and expand it into economic development. Causes are what I look for. And so because I was economic development focused and people focused, I found myself on many committees, city, national committees, helping mayors, legislators really negotiate and find their way through all of the minutia, all of the red tape of helping people. Sometimes they just need to get to the point. And I was always the person in the room get to the point. And the point is helping people. I'm not interested in your bureaucracy. How do you get to an expected end? How do you get this mom to earn more so she can send her children to college so the child is not predisposed to crime, so the baby can learn better, so they have a college education, so you're not fighting at home about the money, so you're not kicking the dog and fighting the cat and taking pills in the car? How do we get to that? And so it was that voice in the room with bureaucrats and legislators, I think, that helped to formulate some really positive legislative bills and action that I'm really proud to talk about. And thankfully, it's gone literally around the world and led me to Ghana. Just got back from that trip, and I want to share that quickly with you. I had the opportunity to go to Ghana and look at economic development now from a truly global perspective. I've been to Europe and some other places, but nothing really prepared me for, one, the opportunities, two, the absolute grit that this population of people had, the vast opportunities, but then the chasm between opportunity and poverty. Just call it what it is. And this huge, so how do we now feel this? And women and children, as you know, regardless of whatever place you find yourself, women and children are predisposed to getting the end of that stick, the bottom of it, if economic development is not at the core. And so I went there, had the chance to meet with literal kings, blew my mind, queen mothers, ministers of government, to now talk about how do we build land, women, people, entrepreneurship, families from a truly systematic perspective. How do we get all ships to rise so that now we have a real impact, not this corruption we've seen, not the talking heads. How do we move the daggone needle where women and children and economies locally, nationally, and globally, if we do it right, it has this ripple effect that hits the GDP eventually. Come on. But you've got to start right here. And so I had the chance, you know, again, I get passionate, you know that. But I had the opportunity to work with businesses and ministers of government globally now, because that's where my heart and my focus is now, really going into international markets in a different place. I did that at the beginning of my career, but now going more as an ambassador for women and talking about the concerns of women and children. And it's fulfilling, to say the least. So that's what I've been up to. What you doing?
That's amazing. So I sit on the board of directors of a nonprofit called She Is Hope LA. And we, and you know some of my story, and certainly people who are listening, many of you have heard my homeless to Harvard, homeless welfare, Harvard welfare for almost a decade, and then a Harvard MBA, right? So, and so I'm passionate about working with organizations that help women. And She Is Hope LA is all about, I call it, the way that I describe it is we're trying to figure out how to circumvent the welfare system in the United States. And part of how we do that is through education and housing. And I want to introduce you to Tisha, to our executive director, because I think that you guys have a really great, there's some commonality. I think she could learn a lot from what you're doing and all.
I'd be honored.
Because I think that is important. I mean, one of the things that, you know, in that process, so earlier on the program, a number of episodes ago, I can't remember, I think she was like episode 19, I think. Anyway, I interviewed this woman named Hannah Zaplatel, and Hannah owns a small horse farm outside of Atlanta, and she teaches little kids and works with disabled veterans and people with developmental disorders and helps them learn how to ride. It's also a working farm. And when she was a little girl, her parents were missionaries in Haiti, and she told this story about how she remembered some well-meaning person or organization decided that they wanted to revolutionize the farming industry in Haiti. And at the time when she was living there, you know, people were using hoes and scythes and all that. And so this well-meaning organization brought a tractor, and they're like, what do I do with this? Right. What do I do with a tractor? Right. And one of the things I loved about that conversation with Hannah is we talked about how important it is to be incremental.
Yes.
that we can't take somebody from 0 to 60 in, you never, it may take you only 3 seconds to get there if you're in the right car. But even still, you still go 1 second at a time. You go 1 nanosecond at a time, right? There's still a series of steps that it takes to get you there.
Absolutely.
And so I imagine that the work that you're doing in Ghana, that's something that you're seeing kind of in spades, is that you have such incredible poverty. And I have this affinity for Ghana. Personally, it's one of my favorite. It's actually one of my top countries on my list to visit, because I have a personal connection with somebody from Ghana.
Guys,
from many years ago. Yeah. And and so, but that notion of incremental movement, incremental, so in working, and I've worked with ministers of government as well in my career. How did you find that conversation? Because it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of increments to get from where people are at today, especially women and children in poverty, to where you're trying to get them.
So for me, it was all mindset. And here's why we do it incrementally, because their mind, their thinking, and their paradigms have to adjust with every step forward or with every detour that we take. There's a mindset and a thinking that has to accompany that. You cannot take the old Ford car, I've forgotten what they call it, the T model Ford.
The Model T.
The Model T. You can't take that mentality into what we just saw with what it was the guy's name with Amazon. Oh God, I'm going blank. Bezos. So thank you. I have not finished all my coffee, but you get my point. So here's what I'm saying. You can't have Bezos thinking with space travel with a Model T mentality.
Right. Absolutely.
You have to adjust. There are many steps that happened in transportation, technology, and just how we think about travel before that happened. And so what I find is that when I'm talking to many and whether it's in Ghana or here in the US, there is this period of time where we have to get unstuck and rethink and re-see what we have. It's not always on the ministers in government. So many times it starts with the people that I'm here trying to help and represent. They have to see their environment differently, right? Because how you see your environment then has a direct impact on how you articulate your needs, how you articulate your desires, what your deal breakers are, all of that has to do with how you see your current environment. And so if we're constantly looking at this environment as broken, and if you're constantly looking at government as your fix, then you're going to perpetuate the status quo. We get nowhere. It's not until this person, this family is empowered to see things differently that they can now articulate a partnership, not a dependence, a partnership now with government or with people in power. And now we have a true collaboration of change and not someone meeting your needs. There isn't this dependency. That was in large part what I had to deal with in Ghana, helping the women see themselves differently and articulating that difference now to investors, to business planners, to mentors. I'm not coming here for you to be a mini me. And that was my message to them. I'm not here for you to leech on to me as if I'm your savior. I'm one woman with a vision and a plan. I'm here to empower you to see what you have and how can you now be empowered in your environment to have an impact where you are. What is your voice now in your economics? What is your voice in your politics? And now I can train you. I can certainly position you and posture you, but I cannot give you that narrative. That's work you have to do for yourself. And so it's even talking to the ministers in government, because so much of, and I'm going to step in a pile, but I got on thigh-high boots, so I'm okay. I'm going to step in a pile, baby, but I got on thigh-high boots. I'm good. So many of the government officials are still working with a colonial mindset where there is still a broken paradigm. And you can read everything into colonial. I don't mind. Send me your nasty text messages. It's fine. But there is a broken mentality there where you're constantly looking outside for your next big idea. for your economic power, for your political power. What about looking within and seeing what you can solve and build from within? Where is the talent from within? So this is the message I have with kings, absolutely, delicately, but yes. This is the conversation I have with queen mothers. This is the conversation I have with women in entrepreneurship in Ghana and other places in the world that I've been blessed to travel. But the message is the same right here in the US. What can you do? My job is to help you see what's in your hands. All right. Now, I'm a woman of faith, so I always go to scripture. And God asked Moses, what's in your hand? So before you lead the children of Israel out, what's in your hand? My point with that is he challenged Moses. And again, I'm going from my paradigm. So send me your nasty text messages. Don't send them to Christine, send them to me. But he asked him, what do you have? So before you ask me to help you, what do you have? Have you had the opportunity to see what talent, gifting, resource, genius, plan, thought, what do you have? Because whatever you have, somewhere in there is your solution. I'm just here to help you discover it.
I really like that. And one of the things, so on another episode of the show, I interviewed a woman named Megan Gardner, and she has this really interesting career that works in kind of bookends. So she does a lot of work with children, and she's created this huge program called Guard Up Guardian Ventures, and they do live action role playing for kids. So kids dress up like they're at Ren fairs, and they create their own stories and they act out. And she's really good at it. She teaches at Harvard and a bunch of other things. But she's also a hospice care volunteer. And so one of the things that we talked about on that episode was the notion of giving and receiving, and that children are net receivers. And for most people at their end of life, they are net givers. And so what you're talking about, though, is I love it because, I talk a lot about the important matter of fact, my first book, Why Not Ask? A Conversation About Getting More, comes out in 1 week. With my bestseller day on August 29th, 2021.
Can't wait to get it.
So I often say, well, why not ask, right? If you don't get anything if you don't ask for it. However, one of the things, and like my logo is that 3-circle Venn diagram, and I kind of break it down into, why don't you ask yourself first?
Oh, that's good.
And then you can ask somebody else, right? And then you got to ask about the situation. So my mentor, Blair Dunkley, he calls it self, other, and situation. But the first step is get clear on you. And what do you have? What do you need? What do you want? What are your priorities? All those kind of things. And that's really what you're talking about right now.
So much of this could be resolved. And when I say this, what we call chaos, turmoil, whatever it is people getting clear about who they are, what they want, what they can contribute, where the deal breakers are, getting clear. We'd have far less therapists if we could get clear. God bless the therapist, though, gotta love him. But in many cases, I think we who are in mentoring are in a kind of therapeutic relationship with those we mentor, with businesses that contract with us, because we help them to see kind of what the big pictures are or is, whatever, and we also help them negotiate through all of the downfalls, and we just walk them through so many aspects of business. And this is what I'm finding out, Christine. Business is a lot more psychological and emotional than we've thought initially. Success is really depending upon how clear we are and how authentically we present ourselves and what we're able to contribute, being authentic in that. And so many of us have bought into models, particularly women, that absolutely just did not fit. Our emotional IQ, our emotional genius did not have a place in that environment, it seems, until most recently. And those were some very hard fought battles to get all of us to the table, not just the pinch, and you heard me talk about this, not just the pinstripe suit and looking, very robotic and all of this stuff, but all of me. My genius, my intuition, my spirit, my mind, my ability to see into places and problem solve in ways that may not be conventional, but may absolutely be what this situation calls on, right? And so for me, it's about helping, again, just people, whether you're a king or a pauper, whether you're a queen mother or a single mother. You have to be authentic. You have to know where your superpower is. You have to know what you can contribute. You have to be clear in articulating your strength, your power, your needs. You have to be clear in all of that. And so I think now we're in a space where people are soul searching about what we really want in business, right? What do we want this organization to be? What's the real impact? Absolutely, profitability is up there with air. You got to have it. But there is this other component that I see developing where people want to be whole in every space. And I think breaking down the walls with COVID and allowing us to be at home now in our spaces, but then having to be in world and in our space, we're creating this new reality where people can see us through a different lens. And we can now bring this genius to the table, maybe where the office environment would not permit it. Well, dang it, I'm in my office now, And so I get a chance to create that and bring you in. And now you get to experience it.
What I love about that. So my husband pointed out an article about a company called Cloudflare. Cloudflare does a lot of, they host DNS web URLs and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they issued a report that talks about Zoom and what has happened in the pandemic. They surveyed all of their employees, and what people found, and they were shocked to find it, is the thing that they got the comments on was that it was an equalizer. That being in a room, right? So I have ambush stories where I've walked into the room as the only woman and with a bunch of guys, and they've just ambushed me and like called me every name in the book and thrown things at me and blah blah blah, all that crap. And so I don't have to be. So there's this, again, using one of Blair Dunkley's kind of mind models. He talks about safety versus comfort, and when we're in physical space with each other, sometimes we get triggered by certain comments, sayings, phrases, a tone, who knows what could trigger somebody. And we immediately go to, I'm not safe. When you actually probably are. You're physically not, nobody's going to kill you in that setting. It's highly unlikely, right? So you are safe. You're just super uncomfortable at the moment. But when we're working in our own homes, for the most part, now there are cases where you have horribly abusive situations where safety is always an issue. But for most people, right, who don't live in that kind of experience, we know we're safe at home.
Yeah.
So we're not afraid to speak up. We're not afraid to say things. We're not afraid to offer our ideas. We're just not afraid because I'm in the safety of my house. You can't come and get me. You could, I can shut you off. Right?
The power of the button.
The power, I can hit my little thing and I can see you, but I don't have to hear you. It's like, and then when you're done and I see your mouth stop moving, then you can turn you back on again. Right. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Right. But no, but that's one of the interesting things about this time that I think that it's, and I hear people talk about, and I don't mean to bring up politics, but I had somebody who's like, this unemployment thing, people are not working. No, thank Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi for people not going back to work. The knowledge industry is taken over. They have told every person, every single person on the face of the planet, no matter how old you are, that you can take what your experience is today and you can bottle it up and you can sell it.
Yes.
And they are showing you how to do it. And people can make far more money doing that than driving Uber or working at your restaurant or whatever. So employers, have got to level up.
I really like that approach because, to your point, to kind of dive back into your point, we have those thinking heads now who are saying, perhaps this is the opportunity for you to take your genius and put it in the market. Because at this point, everybody's looking for answers. We have not negotiated this. I keep using that word. I think it's you. We have not negotiated this landscape before. So we don't necessarily have a pattern, right? There isn't necessarily a right or wrong. It's just what's working for you. And now is the time, if you're going to ever experiment with success and what that looks like with you, now is the time to do that. Radical experimentation is really happening in business now, with brands, with messaging, with marketing. People are looking for creative answers, real, authentic people who say, yeah, I may not know everything in the world, but I have this piece of your puzzle and I know it well. And they're offering it now. And for me, Christine, one of the things that I've championed for many, many years is the closing of the economic gap for people of color and for women, the achievement gap. And you'll hear me talk many times about how women have only earned up to 80 to 90 cents on the dollar. And that's post-women's movement. That's post-civil rights movement. That's post some of the other movements we've had. And we still have not earned 100% of that dollar if we look at the stats surrounding corporate America. It's even lower when you look at some of the other places like STEM and some other areas where women are still in the 21st century, still trying to climb the corporate ladder, right? 2 to 3%, 4% max of STEM execs are women. That's it. And then when you break that down with demographics of color, it becomes more and more scarce. Here's the point I'm making. If ever you're going to empower yourself to make your full dollar, this just may be the time to do that. Because what we see is that there is now the environment to own what's happening to you, because so many of the parameters, the barriers have been broken down, right? We don't have a lot of the comfortability of excuse is removed. Woo, that was good. That came right off the top of the head. The comfortability of excuse is removed because everybody now is searching. Everybody now is experimenting. So if you were ever going to own your voice, your marketing, your genius, your skill, now would be the time to do that. And to your point, Zoom and some of the other formats now have become the norm. So you can't say, well, I don't have the budget for a studio, or I don't have the budget for hair and makeup, or I don't have the budget for this, that, and the other. Everybody now is doing it differently.
Yeah.
So we now have this opportunity that if we would take advantage of it, if we as women, as Americans, as people would take advantage of this moment, we could push the economic achievement gap forward and we could finally close it and not have this discussion anymore. I'm tired of marches for stuff and we don't ever get it done. Now that's a whole nother show.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, but I think your point is very valid, because what it comes down to is that, and people have heard me say this before, the hardest part of any negotiation is the negotiation we have between our ears. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories of what's possible, the stories of what's not possible, it's all of that. And so right now, you're right. It's we have this opportunity to experiment, to try on new things at actually pretty low risk. Right. Exactly. At a relatively low risk. I mean, you don't need a booth like my husband made me. You need a computer with a camera, and you hit blur on Zoom, and there you go. You're good. Get a good mic, and then you're it. But it's like you just don't need that much to break into this new industry, right? And and to try new things and to experiment and see what lands and see doesn't. And I love kind of this notion of, and I'm a Burning Man person, so I'm like all about radical, all sorts of things. And so, you know, I like the notion of radical experimentation, right? It's like, right? Like when we were in Houston,
it just came to me.
Right. When we were in Houston a couple of weeks ago, I was like literally getting ready to go up and do my presentation. And I'm walking to the stage and I said, I'm totally going to change this up. I'm going to do something totally different. Wow. And I changed my whole presentation as I walked from my seat to the stage. Mm-hmm. And it worked great. And I was like, that, and I'm like, that's what I need to, I need to do more of that. I need to do more of that to test and see how things play out. It is so easy for us to work really hard to get to do something, and we see a little progress. And so then we just keep doing that same thing versus radically experimenting at times. And now is the time to radically experiment.
But you brought up something that I love, and I'm sure you're aware of it. As you're walking to the stage and you decide to change your presentation en route, there was a trust that you had in you to even do that.
Yes.
This is absolutely what I'm talking. You feel me?
Yes.
So you trust your acumen. You trust your ability to communicate. You trust that you were the master of your content. You trust your experiences. You trusted your intuition. You trust your preparation. You trust your ability to connect with your end user and your audience. You trust that you could formulate the thoughts on the fly that would be what the audience needed at that moment. There was a radical sense of trust in yourself in order to do that. Go back now to why we even started this conversation. That's kind of at the core of where I see business and leaders, particularly leaders going now who are going to lead really radically successful organizations. It's those leaders like us who can think in the moment, who can see an opportunity in the moment. And this is what I love, seize it. Come on, carpe diem, seize the moment. It's here. It's not about looking for the moment. It's about being aware of it when it happens and being so full of trust, acumen, experience, preparation that when you see it, it's there. You instantly connect with it and you recreate something instantaneously. That's where we're going now. That's the Jeff Bezos paradigm that I was alluding to. It's the ability to fully trust your preparation for the genius that you say you are, or for the opportunity that you say you're wanting, fully trusting in that. And I find too that women are now coming to grips with that. And again, a lot of that is mind, body, spirit alignment, where we're now giving ourselves not just the permission, but the mandate, not permission, the mandate to be a whole being in the boardroom or on the Zoom or in the negotiation or in legislation when you're lobbying. What a whole human being, a whole being. Everything is there. And I guess you can tell that tips something with me. But when we do that, we get these opportunities to see genius at work. And that's what this environment is needing. We don't need status quo anymore. It doesn't work. Where are the thinkers? Where are the creators? Where are the people who are instinctively and innately in tune with their spirit, with divine intervention, divine knowledge, and able to, I don't know if you've had this experience. I've been on stages before, Christine, where I could literally feel, and I think I may have said it in the presentation that you were in, say, I need for y'all to pull on me. I feel somebody pulling on me for an answer. And what I usually mean by that is people are not hungry for prepared notes that don't meet expected ends. I'm going to say that again for somebody who watches the replay. People don't care about your talking points if it does not meet them where they are, move their needle forward, and answer a prevailing question they have. But you have to be a student of people's needs, not necessarily what you think. What do people need? Because when we're in the room as speakers, mentors, whatever, business leaders, we're there to meet a need. And so people expect to excavate an answer. right? So that means there are hours, days, and sometimes years of preparation that we put in because we're leaders waiting for these aha moments to happen. And when they happen, and when we are fully aware, engaged, and prepared, genius happens. And we don't see that often, but I absolutely believe we're moving now because leaders are becoming more and more fearless and less concerned about all of the other stuff that used to kind of guide our narratives. It's moving away because people are pulling on you for an answer. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because I believe that's where we're going now. The space and the frontier. Oh, that's good. Thank you. The frontier of authentic leadership. And that comes with authentic humanity, authentic genius. Yeah. But not this stuff where you've read all the books and you regurgitate and recapitulate everything you've heard. What's yours? But see, it goes back to trust. Here, I trust this face. I trust this brain. Yep. I trust this spirit. I trust my preparation. So that when I have these encounters with other geniuses, I don't become a wallflower. I contribute, right? That's the landscape. That's the new frontier that we're looking at now with leadership. And it's exciting. If we're ready and if we're prepared, and and I know we are, this is the time where we're about to see some real, and the word genius is the only one that I think that really encapsulates it. Real genius at work. Not somebody else's words, but new narratives, fresh ideas, fresh perspectives that really do move humanity forward. That's what business is really all about. Creating the economic opportunity to create the lifestyle or the ecosystem for humanity to move forward. It's about to be big.
I love that. I mean, when I talk about negotiation, I talk about how no matter who you're negotiating, there's two things that you have in common. You both have your humanity and your life experiences, but your life experiences are very different, right? And so it's all a matter of perspective. But I love that you talk about the humanity aspect of it. I've said for years and years, like one of the things I love about business is that it creates the economic engine that allows people to find what they love to do and to flourish and to be givers to others to help them do the same thing. And that's what I love that's what I've always loved about business. It's like, a company exists. Some people are like, well, company exists for its shareholders. And I'm like, that's true, but it also exists to help create the community, influence the community, to give people the ability economically to thrive, exist and thrive in their communities. And all of that improves everything. And that really does. I mean, it goes back to what you were saying early on, and that, small business is not just the engine, it is the fabric of the community. And we can look back in history and we can see cities, like I can't remember the name of the town. It's in Arkansas and it's driving me crazy because I can't remember the name of it, but they produce pickles, right? And they came in and Walmart came in and offered them to buy like a gallon, have them produce pickles, a gallon of pickles for like, I don't know, 29 cents, some ludicrous number. And the entire business went out of business. It was the largest employer in the town. The whole town was built around this one small business that ultimately went under. And so, small business is that fabric. And, we have to recognize that the humanity that we bring as small business owners is what helps our communities improve and grow. And I love that. I think that's Absolutely. An amazing message.
And I think too, to expand that conversation, I would really implore larger businesses, corporations, to ask the surrounding communities, what should be our core value? Because the people from that environment will now come in to work in these businesses. Here is my point. A huge employer like Walmart creates lots of opportunities. My hope is that they ask the people who are there, what's your core value? What should we stand for? Because we are your neighbors. We are your principals. We are your school teachers. We are your police department, your fire department, your water, your municipal employees. All of that surrounds what's happening here. And so I think, and perhaps small business should be the caveat or the catalyst, I should say, to that. And really intentionally tie community in. You know, we stand for vision, we stand for authenticity, we stand for leadership, but ask them, what does that mean to you as a member of the community I serve? That changes the conversation.
Yeah. Well, and that's really interesting because going back to this whole Zoom conversation, right? That our community is not just the community in which we live for many of us anymore.
Come on.
Right? It's a global community. And
absolutely.
So, and that can be daunting for people. So when they think of, oh my gosh, how do I do that on a global scale? You can still start in the community that you live in, right? You started in the community you live in. I started in the community I live in. And then how do you expand it? How do you start, building beyond that and just beyond that single geography?
It goes back to a word that you brought up earlier in the conversation, incrementally. Because going back to a point I made about the word, the mindset now has to accompany every benchmark. So it's not like there's a proverb, I think it's an African proverb that says, you don't eat the elephant whole, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. But we have to have the courage to start. That's the thing. It's not the biting, it's not the process, because as we're going, we can change, right? We become more flexible. We, what's the word I'm looking for? We adjust. That's the word I'm looking for. Make adjustments as we go. Yep. But we find so many people lack the courage to initiate the conversation because we're afraid of the answers we'll receive. But it goes back to, again, trust. It goes back to trust. And so I think if we as leaders start to have this conversation, and sometimes it will open up a Pandora's box. So yes, we need parameters around the conversation, especially when it comes to corporate culture. But opening up the conversation to the point of, even if I feel attacked or triggered, and I said attacked, but even if a leader may feel attacked or triggered, they have to trust, well, my heart isn't there. I know that's not my heart. I know that's not my intention. And once I give this person the opportunity to speak their perspective, I so trust where I'm coming from is an authentic and genuine place. I can articulate the rebuttal to that and hopefully get them to see and understand where we're really going and what this really means for them. But again, it has to be a trust here that I can hear the criticism, the trigger, the attack, and not be moved by it because I so trust my intentions. I so trust my heart, my preparation. And I'm finding out a lot of leaders have not done that work. Have not done that work. Today's environment is going to take a different acumen, right? And so it's not just going to be headspace. It's really going to be heart space and being able to discern what's a trigger, what's an attack, and what's an authentic opposition, request, rebuttal, whatever. You see what I mean? What is this, an authentic or a real concern? Or is this a trigger because I have not done my personal work?
See, so one of the things that I love to talk about is exactly that. So, I've been going through this whole thing around, and part of why I changed my talk in Houston is that I have this quiz on my website that is, to learn your default negotiation style. And what's fascinating to me is that the data is not coming out the way that it's supposed to. So there's a certain percentage of negotiators that fall into each of the camps. Well, the camp that should be the style that has the fewest, that is the smallest percentage of negotiators are benefactors. Right. So it's less than 10% of negotiators. And what benefactor means is that you sacrifice your own self-interest for the betterment of the person you're negotiating with. You sacrifice your own self-interest exclusively for the benefit of the other party. And that is very rare because we are largely, most of us have a need to serve self, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But in my quiz, almost 80% of people say that come out as their benefactors. So my initial reaction was, oh my God, the quiz is broken. I got to fix the quiz. And then I started having a bunch of conversations with people. I talked to the woman who runs the company that manages all the platforms that runs DISC. And I've talked to other people who do assessments and all that stuff. And what we kind of came up with was negotiation is a trigger word, and triggered is a different thing than stress. That's not like it's a different thing. So people want to think that they are this ultimate benefactor, that they will sacrifice their self-interest for the betterment of the others. But that is not how we behave in a real negotiation. And so I think and so I always say that I love being a lifetime student of Christine McKay. Right. And, the benefit of different negotiation styles is actually you want to learn how to use all of them, but at different times.
Sure. That's good. That's good.
But it's like, we have to know ourselves. We have to be able to sit and say, and I did this just recently on my book cover. I had the book cover designer sent me the first draft that she did. And I had a visceral negative reaction. She had taken the art from my podcasts and used it as the basis of the book. Well, the artist who did the podcast art I still work with. And I live in Hollywood. I have a daughter who's an artist. My husband works in an animation studio. So I'm really sensitive to artists getting credit for their work. And I didn't, when I first saw it, I was like, I texted my editor and I'm like, she's like, I love the cover. And I was like, I'm having a really strong negative reaction to the cover and I don't really know why. So I'm going to go away and I'm going to think about this and I'm going to sleep on it. And I'm going to come back to you tomorrow with some feedback because this something is just not feeling right. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that I was feeling very protective for some reason of the original artist's work. I wanted to make sure that the original artist got credit for his work that the new one was using to build off of, right? And so then I called the person that he works for and I said, I need to know if Lorenzo's okay with our using the art, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, you own the art. And I said, that's not what I'm asking, right? For me, it's like, it's as an ethics thing. It's like, this is an ethical thing, right? But if you don't know, if you don't stop and you don't sit and you're not aware enough to sit and say, ooh, I'm having a reaction. I'm not liking this. It's not feeling good. What's causing that? And you're not aware enough, one, to recognize it, two, to acknowledge it, to be transparent enough, authentic enough to acknowledge that emotion. And three, to love yourself enough to say, I need to spend some time and sit with this to understand it for myself so that then I can come back and again, transparently communicate what the issue is, right? That is so important in any negotiated relationship, any relationship at all.
I agree. Now I'm going to take this to women because that's primarily my audience, not to negate the men who may be listening, but so many women excuse that initial reaction and go right over it because they're told you're too sensitive, you're too emotional, you're too soft, you're too hormonal, this, that, or the other. And we discount that part of ourselves because of negative narratives. I will not tell you who this person is, but I'll give you an illustration of how far this goes. There's a person that I know and love dearly who, on her honeymoon night, while most brides would be happy and rejoicing and ready to do all that the honeymoon has in store, went in the bathroom and bawled and cried her eyes out, didn't know why. Her spirit and her emotions knew something that she would not allow her conscious, and just read between the lines without me naming her. Okay. Would not allow her conscious mind to be aware of it and address it and say, this may be the worst mistake of her life. Get out. But she had been in an environment where her voice, you're too strong, be quiet. You're too forceful, be quiet. You're too this or that, be quiet. You're too emotional, be quiet. You're too opinionated, be quiet. And so now when it's time to benefit from that strength, it has been so diminished and so dismissed. She now makes a lifetime decision that led her down a road that she is regretting to this day because of the psychological, emotional, financial, social damage that happened with that one relationship that she knew. So here's the point I'm making. We have to be, going back to what you said, aware and brave enough to acknowledge these triggers when they happen. There is a part of us, and it's a part of my my presentation in Mogul. The M is for mindset, O is for optimization, the G is for that God part of us that is aware of so much out there that our conscious mind is not. That's a part of who Mogul is, bringing, again, all of you, the ability to bring in the divine. I call him God. But to be aware and just to wait, I can't put my hand on it, but I give myself permission to go discover and spend time with this. And I'm not so needy for this opportunity that I will rush past this and ignore all the red flags. Let me stop and invest. That's the word I'm looking for. Investigate. We don't give ourselves permission to investigate. Peel back the layers. Well, I'm afraid if listen what I just said. I'm afraid that if I ask the questions, I'll lose the contract. I'll lose the partnership. I'll lose the opportunity. Oh, this will never happen again. You don't trust you then. You don't trust you. If you think this is and I'm preaching to the choir, somebody out there again, if that is your response, I'm going to challenge you now to change your response and go spend some time with you. So that I'm almost about to cry. So that you trust you in every situation. You're the only ally you have in the room, truly. You're truly the only ally you have in the room until those relationships are built, until you can discern the goodwill honestly, not just the win-win scenario, but is there genuine goodwill here? Until you discover that you are the only ally in the room you have outside of who I call on the divine. So when you walk into these environments, it's just you. You've got to trust you in that moment. And if you shut you down, come on, if you shut down your voice, your intuition, if you shut down your discernment, if you shut down the part of you that hears past the words, you may be embarking upon a lifetime of hurt, or two, a good decision that you did not wait for the great or the best decision to happen. Sometimes we settle for good when great is around the corner. Now that's a whole nother message.
Yep.
We settle for good because we don't trust great in us. Oh, if anybody's writing down notes, take that down. You've got to trust that great is what you deserve, not from the sense of entitlement and, again, narcissism. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm giving the best, I'm open and I have the capacity to receive the best. Why is it that we exchange the best of us for the good in someone else?
Exactly.
Hear what I'm saying? Why is it we're okay with giving the best of ourselves and receiving only good?
Well, what's interesting about that, so this goes back to what we were talking about earlier around negotiation is giving and receiving, right? And,
I love how you bring that back full circle.
One of my very dear friends, Annika Sandberg, she's Swedish and she's now moved back to Europe, but I was going through some stuff in late 2018, 2019, some really, really tough stuff. And I didn't reach out to her to ask for help. And she was angry at me. And I was like, what? And we'd met up for drinks, and she was walking me home essentially. And she said, Christine, she goes, you give so much to me. She says, you give to me all the time. And how does that make you feel? And I said, it feels good to give to you. And she said, then who are you to rob me of the opportunity to do the same?
Bingo.
Who are you to rob me of the opportunity? So in negotiation, when we're in negotiation, right? And to your point about being true to who we are and knowing who we are, understanding what do I want out of life? What do I want? Yes. Right? When you have that clarity on what it is, then saying no is the greatest gift that you can give to somebody, because you're not wasting their most valuable resource, which is their time. That's your most valuable resource too.
Yes.
Right? It's like, you're amazing. I think what you're doing is great, but it's just not a fit for me. That's an okay thing. That no thing is an okay thing, but we've got to be clear. And but we also have to give, we want to give so much, but we don't give ourselves permission to receive. We judge ourselves for receiving. And actually I write about this in my book. When I'll never forget this day. I won't forget. I remember the weather. I remember what I was wearing. I remember everything. A group from church, we could not feed. My first husband did not believe that women should work. And he was an aggressive man, but he couldn't support us. So we were buying our groceries at the local food bank. We were boiling water on the stove to give our kids baths. I would go through garbage cans in order to find soda cans to be able to trade them in and put gas in my car. It was a crappy situation. And I will never forget, this couple showed up at our door unannounced with bags of groceries. And I don't remember, there's only one other time I remember being that angry. I was so angry. And because I felt like it was being thrown in my face that I couldn't support my own family. And I was like, and my head is going, you should be grateful. And I'm like, to hell with grateful. I'm angry. I'm furious. I'm humiliated. I'm ashamed. I'm just like all these things. So in my book, I talk about, and this is why I think, and this is where, for me, one of the biggest lessons I've learned about negotiation around giving and receiving is that, for me, I think that people who've never had to receive anything, now that's a very tiny percentage of people who've never had to receive something from somebody else. But until you know and you sit with the feeling of what it is to receive, you actually cannot be an effective giver.
Or leader.
You have to know how to receive, and you have to be open to that. And so in negotiation, one of the things that drives me batshit crazy about so many people, so much of the conversation around negotiation isn't focused on this concept of transparency and trust, right? Because if I am authentic with you, if I'm like real with you and I'm saying, hey, this doesn't feel right, I got to go figure out why this doesn't feel right. That's man, if somebody does that to me in a negotiation, you get lots of points for that. I'm like, heck yes, you sit with that as long as you need to sit with it. Come back to me when you're ready, blah, 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 blah. You come back, you communicate it to me, right? Now I've given you space because I've been able to receive your emotion, right? I've given you space. My gift to you is to give you space to sit with it and explore it and figure it out. And then your gift to me is to share it, right? Really amazing negotiations happen when that kind of dialogue takes place.
Yes. And it's trust.
And it's in business too, people. It's not just in your personal relations, because business is relationships.
Yes.
Business is relationships. And
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's trust. Absolutely. It's trust at the basis of all of that. And what I kind of thought about when you were talking about, you give them the space and the time and you receive their emotion, but you also get the opportunity to be empowered in that and not feel like you're losing something.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And think about how that gets your stock value in you goes up. Wait a minute. I'm not moving out of desperation. I'm not moving out of fear. And it reaffirms the security that you have in yourself. It reaffirms the trust you have in. And for me, I have these conversations with me, right? Like, girl, that's why I trust you. That move you just made, that's why I trust you. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's the self-talk I choose to have with myself now. When I can wait on something that looks like the best opportunity when somebody else will be chomping at the bit to have it. But there's something in me that says, wait, pause. And I sit in that. And then I see their expression like, you don't know this is the best opportunity of a lifetime for you. But I get to sit in my power and say, only I decide that.
Exactly.
Only I decide that. You don't decide that. And if you were to release, come on, that's the negotiations. And that's a power move. Woo! That's a power move. Yep. When you can sit there and say, well, I'll decide that. And so it's kind of like who blinks first. But I'm constantly listening to what's not just what's being said, but what's not being said. And how am I intuitively, just viscerally or innately responding? Is it visceral? Is it innate? What's happening? Because I'm so in tune with it, right? Or him or her, I'm in tune with my spirit. Let me say it that way. And so what the then power move is again, the ability to sit in that space and reaffirm your trust in you. Reaffirm why you trust your own decision making. And because you talk about people calling you names in the boardroom. Oh, honey, I've had some situations. Now, nobody ever called me out of my name and lived to tell about it. Let's tell that. Relieve me there. But it's been this, the microaggressions.
Lots of those. Yes.
The microaggressions against my boundaries or against that power. But even when people would bump up against it, it still stands. I still said, wait. And see, it's that silence then that gives them the opportunity to feel whatever they're going to feel. But for me, it's my time to reaffirm my power, my voice. And if I can walk away from what seems to be the best option for somebody else, but it does not feel right to me, I have just opened myself up for the great, because that was the good, but I'm open to the great. And if it does not meet me here, I trust God so much. I trust me so much. I trust my preparation so much that I have the capacity to wait. But again, it's trust. And so many times we move out of fear because we don't trust ourselves. We just don't trust ourselves. And so and you would think this doesn't have a place in business, but especially in real estate, because male-dominated industry. And let's just be more specific. The pawpaws run that industry. You understand? It's a whole generation of baby boomers. And so there's a different paradigm that comes along with that. And when you get into land investing, the demographic changes again.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's, again, having that power, regardless of the environment, to trust yourself and to be in those environments and say, wait, what's the best move? Yes, for this, because I really do believe in win-wins. I really do believe that everybody should take something from the table and be okay and be pleased with that. But if it ever gets into a tug of war, and you know what I mean by that, with negotiations where it's no longer a win-win scenario, we're going to have to declare a winner or a loser here, or a winner and a mega winner. Maybe it's not a loser, but a winner and a mega winner. Then I go to that space. And sometimes silence, oh my God, you talk about negotiation. Silence is a tool that so many of us don't use regularly enough.
Absolutely.
And my mother and my grandmother used to tell me all the time, Christine, people don't know what you're thinking until you say it.
Yep, it's absolutely true. I mean, I actually said this comment with my husband. I'm like, I know my husband's second best. I know my husband better than anyone other than my husband knows himself.
Come on.
It's like, I don't know what he's thinking. We only know what we're thinking. We can only assume what others are thinking until they tell us.
Exactly. And so sometimes silence is golden in finding your place and your power. Sometimes silence is golden because we can, and again, it goes back to who blinks first. And I found this too, again, in negotiations, because I'm primarily talking to men when it comes to the contract. Women make the decisions about the aesthetic, but I don't know why we switch gears sometimes when we talk to, when it comes time for the conversation about money, then, the voices in the room change. And we have to address that. Again, another conversation. But it's about being in tune with your power and your power source and knowing that it's infinite. And just because another big personality comes into the room, it does not suck the air out of the room for me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, right. Big personality. And what?
Right.
Going back to the trust, though. Going back to the trust, because sometimes we talk too fast, right? And we say stuff, or we give away our power plays, or we give away our position. And then from there on, you're a puppet on a string. And it's no longer co-equals coming to the table, or that win-win scenario just left the room because you showed your hand. You talk too much. That's a whole nother conversation. You talk too much. But that's what I talk to women about. Sometimes it's not about what you say. It's about what you don't say. This guy's I'm getting him on my podcast, guy named Jason Campbell, and he's a musician and he does meditative music. And we're going to do an episode on listening, using music as the tool to help people understand listening more effectively. And I saw him speak, and he's just amazing. And it was the most powerful demonstration of listening and the importance of it that I've ever sat in. So, because listening is you have to know what you want to ask for. Mm-hmm. But then you have to give, I often say that when I'm at the negotiation table, I'm the least important person there. And people are like, what do you mean, Christine? You got to get what you want. And I'm like, I know what I want. Oh, that's good.
I know what I want. I know what I need. I've done all that homework. I've done all that research, but I only have a hypothesis about what my counterpart needs or wants.
That's good.
And I need to ask questions, effective questions, to be able to let my counterpart explain to me or tell me and show me what it is that they want. Right. So at the negotiation table, I am not the most important person at the table.
That's powerful. Oh my God, that's powerful. And you talk about trusting yourself in the narrative. I was thinking about something when you were talking about listening. And I don't know how close we are on time, but we can talk for 3 hours. You just let me know. But I was thinking about the importance of listening and really going beyond the surface of what people are saying, looking at body language, and then being aware of what their words are, how their words are impacting you. I have a dear friend who I had the opportunity to get to know better during a recent trip. And I've noticed that when she talks, she tends to talk over other people while they're talking. She tends to already assume that she knows what you're going to ask or say before you do, and cut you off before you can say it. And I was thinking about, I really do care about this person. What is this? And so I went into prayer and meditation about her and how to approach it. And what came to me was another conversation that she and I had, rejection. And wanting to prove that she's not just enough, but more than enough in every situation. And so before she can even get to the table and hear what you have to say, she's already kind of coming in like this. And you just feel this invasion of your personal space when you're with her, because she's just assuming that she knows what you're going to say, she knows it all, and she tries to dominate and control the narrative and the environment without hearing, because she's insecure about what she needs, who she is, and her value system is, let me prove my value by overworking, over talking, just way camp, really living in camp too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that goes into negotiation as well, because think about the person who's aware of that and can pick up on that, and how that now manipulates the environment and the negotiation. She doesn't even know she can be manipulated. She's talking so much. And that's a telltale sign of discomfort, insecurity, all of that. You're blinking first. And so that's another thing I really want, particularly women, to be aware of. There is power in silence. There's power in silence. And sometimes being quiet in a room and becoming comfortable and just become aware of the thoughts that go through your mind when you're quiet. The same thing happens in a boardroom. So if you're getting those negative narratives, just sitting quietly with yourself. Why in the world am I here? This is such a waste of time. Your inner critic, you've got to be able to turn that stuff off, because people will pick up on, really intuitive, smart people can pick up on that and totally manipulate the situation. Listening is such a key component in not just negotiations, but navigating life. People really tell you what they think, sometimes by not speaking at all.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
That's my feeling. But you hit something with that listening. We need to become better with that and more skilled and refined with that. You're onto something with that, but okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying. That's why I want to get Jason on the show, because it's something that we talk about. There's been so much conversation about the importance of listening, but in my experience, not very many people can have come up with a way of actually helping people understand it.
It's a skill.
Right. It's like it is, and it's like, if we can think about it in a different way. And so Jason does that. So I'm like super excited about having him on the show. So we've got, this is going to be one of my longer episodes. I love you. You are just like it's just such amazing opportunity to get to chat with you. How can people find you?
All over social media, Chairidee Smith, LinkedIn, Chairidee Ms. Mogul Smith. And you'll see me there in a bright yellow dress looking like a beam of sunshine. And so primarily LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. You can also go to youcancreateyourown.economy.com. That is kind of a hub that I'm going towards now, that started with an event, and now it's moved into the Mogul method, which is a training that we're talking about. So you can go there. If you're really interested in real estate though, and want to have those conversations still about real estate and development, and want to learn how to do real estate investing, you can go to mommie's.economies.com, and there are downloads there for folks who want to do some study at home stuff, or if you need some one-on-one mentoring. That's my bread and butter. I still love the dirty business of real estate negotiations. So that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. Chairidee, thank you so much for being here with me today. I just have really enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy our conversations, but you just energize me, and I love that. I love it. And to everyone who has tuned in, thank you so much again for spending your valuable time with us. We really appreciate you. We love that you are listening every week, and I can't wait to bring you another amazing guest. I have a big surprise coming for my 50th episode in a few weeks. I can't wait to disclose what that is. In the meantime, if you want to get the show notes, because there's a lot of things in here that you could have been taking notes on. And if you want to get the show notes, just go to venn.zone. And you can get the show notes. We have a little gift waiting for you. And then if I've got my book coming out. I would love for you to buy my book. Why not ask a conversation about getting more? When you sign up, we'll send you some more information about that. In the meantime, happy negotiating, everybody. And just remember, negotiation is a conversation about a relationship, and you cannot win a relationship, but you can get more value out of it. So we'll see you next time on In the Venn Zone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Venn Zone with Christine McKay. We invite you to visit our website at www.venn.zone to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Empower the negotiator in you and successfully level the playing field. Join us again next time here on In the Venn Zone.